Hey everybody! So this weekend I was at my mum's for the inevitable childhood and teen years stuff clear out. Like the school projects and swimming certificates and all of that stuff that like builds up through your childhood and your teen years. And she just got this like shelves of this stuff for me and my sister, and I was sort of going through it with her, and it it happened to include a back catalogue of everything I'd written through my childhood and my teen years. Um, and all of this stuff contained this gem. Tales of Hawthorn Farm. I did actually submit this. I wrote it when I was like 11, maybe 10, and around that age, and I did get the usual pleasant rejection. So that was the first experience of Emily Inkpen, my foray into publishing and being rejected. It's a collection of short stories about animals on a farm. It's a bit Beatrix Potter. And I've sort of scanned through it, and the subjects are really quite heavy. Like, there's this hen at one point who's desperately trying to hide her eggs because the farmer's wife, Mrs. Cheddar, is trying to like steal her eggs to eat them, and she's really distressed because she wants to have a clutch that will grow up and hatch. And there's another one where a sheepdog has a litter of puppies, and the puppies are going to be sold at the county fair without the parents' permission. And there's this big drama about it. And there's another one where there's a goat who ends up having an eating disorder. So clearly I was going for the hard subjects in my farmyard animal tales, which is kind of hilarious. At the age of 11, clearly I wanted to make a point to the world and have an impact for, better or worse. And I'm not entirely surprised that it was rejected. Anyway, I've not actually read any of this in years. I had this quick scan and it was kind of hilarious, and I decided not to read it on purpose. There is one story in here that I remember being like the one that outshone them all, and I thought that if I could read it and maybe we could explore it together and have this experience. I'm really dubious about this. This could be the worst idea in the world or the best idea in the world. Jury is still out. Okay, I guess we'll find out. Okay, so the font choice is obviously papyrus. What else would it be? We're off to a great start. Okay, so in pure storytime fashion, are we sitting comfortably? Good, then I'll begin. The story is called Wayne. It was a beautiful spring morning. The birds were singing, the bees were buzzing, and Farmer Joe whistled as he crossed the flagstone yard. Mrs. Cheddar was baking in the kitchen, and the smell of baked bread wafted among the sweet scents of the garden flowers. Mr. and Mrs. Hogsworth had just had a new lot of piglets. There were 8 of them in total, 7 sweet, fat and healthy-looking pigs, and one called Wayne. He had 2 sisters, Patricia and Sharon, and 5 brothers, Jeremy, Keith, Mark, Matthew, and Michael. Best names ever for pigs. Okay. As much as he looked like the others, he was never as big. His brothers and sisters would push him out of the way when it came to feeding time, and he was always left out when they were playing games. Wayne would sit, alone in the sty, and think of poetry. Indeed, he was quite talented when it came to rhymes. One day, he sat in his usual corner and watched as insects and birds flew by. Slowly, he recited to himself, Mrs. Bee, what do you see over the garden wall? Oh, what I would do to share a view with a wonderful bee such as you. He chuckled to himself as he sat there, alone. Keith was playing it with Mark, and he fell over and bumped into Wayne as he was pondering a question that he had been longing to ask for a long time. "Wayne, get out the way," Keith moaned, and he picked himself up out of the dirt. "I always sit here," Wayne said indignantly. "Keith," he asked, "have you ever wondered what lies beyond the wall?" he said, lifting his malnourished leg and pointing his trotter at the wall of the pigsty. "Don't care," Keith said blandly, and he walked away with his snout in the air. Wayne sighed and went back to his thoughts. Over the wall and in the farmhouse, Mrs. Cheddar was very busy. She was making ready for the arrival of her granddaughter, Molly. Molly was 8 years old and lived on a farm with her mother and father. Her father, Jack, was Farmer Joe and Mrs. Cheddar's son, and Molly was the apple of her grandparents' eyes. Jack and his wife, Mary, were expecting their second child, and Molly was coming to stay while her mother was in hospital giving birth to her new baby brother or sister. Molly was looking forward to seeing the new piglets, and Farmer Joe was thinking of giving one to her as a present, for Molly had always loved pigs. Wayne, however, knew nothing of this, and that is why he was surprised to hear the engine of a car that he didn't recognise in the yard, and even more intrigued when he heard a child's voice say, "Where are the piglets, Grandma?" A face appeared over the gate, and a hand was extended down to entice the small pigs over to her. To Wayne's utmost surprise, his brothers and sisters didn't approach. Instead, they ran over to their mother, who was lying on the other end of the sty. Now, Wayne, being the sort of pig that he was, moved himself from the corner that he called his own and sidled up to Molly's outstretched palm. Molly looked at him with greatest love and picked him up and cuddled him. Wayne just lay there, being the charming fellow that he was, and Molly fell in love with him. And when her grandpa asked her if she would like him, she couldn't have been happier. She lifted him up in the air, and for the first time in his life, Wayne saw over the garden wall. The end. Oh wow, okay, there is a poem at the end here as a sign-off, along with some clip art, because that's the era we're talking about here. So the poem goes, "The lark is singing in the sky. I ask him why he likes to fly. He says, for he, like many a bee, likes to fly, for the country can't be seen better than from the sky." Another one of Wayne Hogsworth's poems. Now, I cannot understand why that wasn't published. Clearly a masterpiece. And anyone who decides to call a piglet Keith I'm giving myself props for that. That's amazing. And Sharon and Patricia. Okay. I guess we'll never know what happens to Wayne's brothers and sisters. I don't think Keith is a philosophical type, so I don't think Keith was one to ponder it too much. Thank you for listening. That was a bit of a random sojourn into my past. Yeah. The end.